All right, I'd like to welcome everyone out tonight, September 10th, 2024, episode 5. We're here for Tuesday, Deer Talk Tuesday, Van Meter and Son Lure. It's been a few weeks since I've been on here and staying busy in the shop and doing different things. But before we get started here tonight, let a few people get on. Good to see you, Chris, different ones. But September 10th, 2024, episode 5, Deer Talk Tuesday. And appreciate you guys coming on here tonight. It's been a few weeks. But anyhow, always start off with something old, something vintage. It's something I like to do here just to break the ice, let people get on here. And feel free to ask some questions as we go tonight. But as we look at something old, something vintage tonight, I was wondering what I would find today around the house, and I found a Fox D50 deer call. I've had this since I was a kid. It's probably a 70s model deer bleat. Something old, something vintage. Well, here it is tonight. Fox D50 deer call, and it says on here 616 18th Street, Lake Charles, Louisiana. So anyhow, I thought that's pretty neat. I'm not even for sure where I got it. Fox D50 deer call. See if it still works. I know it does. I tried a while ago. So it's a deer bleat. It's an oldie but a goodie. Probably, I know it's 50 plus years old, maybe 60 plus years old. But anyhow, hey Matt, how you doing? All right, so something old, something vintage, Fox D50 deer call, 70s, maybe late 60s model. If anybody has one of them, let me know. Pretty cool. Don't even know where I found it or got it. I just know it's been around me my whole life. All right, well tonight, I appreciate everybody tuning in. It's been a few weeks, and tonight we're going to talk about something that's kind of current, something that's going on right now. We're going to talk about the deer shift, but I want to go a little bit deeper into that. I'm not going to go over anybody's head or even try to. Keep it very simple here tonight. But I want to to talk about the fall shift that we're experiencing right now. I know a lot of you guys are probably losing some bucks you've had on camera all summer. They're slowly making that shift. We're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about the pre-rut shift. There is a shift that happens during that time. The rut shift, there's a buck shift that happens during that time. The peak rut, there's a major shift that happens during that time, the peak rut, there in mid-November. And we'll talk a little bit, we'll end our little conversation tonight about the winter shift, how deer will shift there in the dead of winter, January, February. But anyhow, I appreciate all the business, appreciate all the orders on our website. Appreciate everybody stopping in here at the shop. It is rolling. We are, today, I think me and Caleb, this evening, we bottled about 7 gallons of number 11. So things are hopping. But anyhow, 6 things that make that mature buck shift we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about a little bit about how the food will make that shift. That shift is where they leave a home area and they go to a new home area for weeks or months. And it's always during leading up to the pre-rut, leading up to the fall, that major annual shift. But food will cause that, cover will cause that, buck ratio on your land will cause that. If you have a doe factory on your land where it's just nothing but a huge doe parcel, you're seeing lots and lots of does, that can cause a certain kind of shift. We'll talk a little bit about cold fronts as well as crop harvest, how that can cause a shift. A lot of times when you hear about the shift talked about or explained, you pretty much just hear about this annual shift that takes place here August, September, 1st October. Well, there's a lot of other shifts involved, and I just want to share that with you this evening. I know I'm a stickler on buck bedding, knowing where he beds or trying to figure out where he beds, and there's a lot of shifting going on during this fall time of the year and even after that annual shift. But anyhow, as we look into that shift tonight and the depths of it, I think during this time of the year here in August, September, the split off of the bachelor groups is one of the first major little shifts, and they'll just maybe stay on the same parcel, but they begin to separate a little bit on that same parcel. But then summer food and the closing of our greens, like our lush greens out in the fields, whether it be clover, alfalfa, soybeans, all that creates a shift. The whole shift kind of starts off with that little bit of a testosterone spike, and the bachelor groups begin to fade out, and they begin to go their separate ways. But I think of this summertime shift that we're in right now. If you look outside, you can see a lot of dearth. You can see a lot of the poplar trees, they're dropping, turning yellow. You can see a lot of our fields. We haven't had any rain. They're burnt. You can see a lot of our lush beans that were beautifully green a week or 2 or 3 ago. Now they're turning golden yellow or brown. And always remember this, because this has a lot to do with the shift too. Summer lush green is water. It is water. As long as they're eating that lush high stem count or that lush forage, mainly the beans this time of year, and the alfalfa and the lush clover and the hay fields, there is a lot of water content in that. Well, when all that begins to dry up here in August and September, there becomes a shift towards a different water source. And during that time of the year, it's usually a small stream or a river or a pond or a man-made water hole or anything like that. So that's going to create a shift as well. A lot of guys just look at the shift like, yep, they're busting out of bachelor groups, they're going to their pre-rut homes, but there's a lot of shifting going on before a lot of that even takes place. So if some of you guys are missing out on seeing that big buck you've watched all summer long, glassing him, or maybe he's been on a green field by your house and he's gone, there's a lot of reasons why that could be. And sometimes it is that water content. Sometimes it is that testosterone spike, and things are breaking off and they're starting to shift. But I think something a lot of guys don't pay a whole lot of attention to is your parcel or lands that are dominated by doe family groups. Like you see in the summertime, you'll see a lot of doe family groups just taking over a lush corner of soybeans that's in the shade. That buck, he's been in there all summer long. That's been his little spot. Well, all of a sudden, these doe family groups begin to come into these feeding areas, and that'll create a shift with your bucks. And they don't want to be around them does. They don't want to associate with all that. So they'll begin to shift and leave as well. But I think of mature bucks not wanting to be around does this time of year, and then you think of these yearling bucks, these 6 points, 4 points, year and a half old bucks, these yearling bucks. You think about them, they're getting kicked out of the herd, so by the does, and it happens even earlier, way earlier than this, and that creates a huge shift. Where one buck is, he goes into another area where this other buck has always been. They begin to collide. It creates a different kind of shift. So there's a lot of herd shifting going on this time of year with all these young bucks and older bucks moving around, searching for water, searching for food as our habitat changes going into the drought, going into the fall. But I want to first talk about tonight the summer and fall annual shift, kind of where we are right now, what's kind of going on right now, and it's starting right now. I'm sure some of you guys that are watching tonight, out of 25 of you on here tonight, there's got to be somebody that says, man, I haven't seen my target buck for the last week and a half, or I haven't seen him for the last 2 days or 3 days. Well, if you go back there in August, we had a good cold front come in. That's something else that'll create a shift. We'll talk more about it here in a little bit, but these guys don't want to travel 5 miles or 4 miles or 3 miles when it's 70 degrees at night or 82 degrees at night. We had a little bit of a fall feel there in late August, and that created a shift for these dudes to get out and travel. But I think of number one reason is that testosterone spike. The bachelor's group break up. That's what we're seeing right now. Not in all places. You can still see things bachelored up, no doubt. But John Fair says, 7 days since I seen my target buck after 9 days in a row. A little bit of shifting going on there, John. A great comment. But I think of the testosterone spike. That creates a shift. Cover is changing. Screen cover. Where they can be hidden on the inside and look out. There's a lot of foliage that's falling off right now. There's a lot of lower canopy that's falling off right now due to drought, due to just the seasonal change. I think of with these cooler temperatures, some of these bucks, I know there's a buck that I hunt. He always likes to bed during the summertime in this deep valley by a creek. And so since we've had some of this change going on, somebody the other day was in the shop, said, hey, have you heard about this? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yep, I know all about him. He's making that shift. He's no longer tucked away in that deep valley in them cool temps because of a summertime habitat. He's shifting around, and he's probably about a half mile from where he used to bed. So I said all that to say this, cover change, when your cover begins to die away and thin out, that creates a shift. Cooler temperatures creates a bedding shift, and that bedding shift is a big thing right now. These guys are starting to bed in different areas. But always remember this. I'm going to get ahead of myself, but I want to inject this now. That summertime bed, if it's thick enough and there's enough cover, that summertime bed, if he shifts or has here recently, and you're not seeing him anymore, there's a good chance at peak rut he'll come back to that location, and he'll more than likely bed where he bed during the summer, if there's enough cover, enough screen cover for his liking. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's look at a few reasons tonight on these seasonal changes that create this shift. Yeah, Donald Small, do you think EHD has hit our area up like north? No, I don't think so, but I'm not a professional on that. But I'm not hearing anything about EHD in our area like they are up north. But anyways, back to my notes. As we talk about this seasonal change, how it creates this shift, and it's kind of, a lot of it is all wrapped around food. Breeding is just icing on the cake. A lot of this shift has a lot to do with food, and then it enters into our breeding season. But food, right now, like I said earlier, green is water. Green is water. Whatever kind of lush green that you have available for your herd, it is water. I think of the shift will change with the acorns dropping. It's an even number year. The old timers always said, even number year, southern Indiana, northern Kentucky, you'll have a lot of white oaks. And here we are, 2024, and some of you guys can testify to that. You have a lot of acorns, white oak acorns on your parcels. That's going to create a shift. So this food is going to create this shift. And also, I noticed up north of here, a few miles, a few weeks back, they were already chopping silage. So that's going to create somewhat of a shift for some of the deer in that area, these mature bucks especially. But I think these shifts are kind of centered around food and feeding and habitat change, the acorn drop, the corn starting to get dried out, and the deer start to eat the corn more. And then they navigate to water hose because your lush green is really not available. So they're going to find a better water source, whether it be a spring or a stream or a pond or a lake. And so you're going to notice all this shifting going on, and it has to do with habitat change. It has to do with seasonal change. A lot of guys think the shift is just for breeding, but it's not. I mean, it's deeper than that. These animals are going to follow food and cover, and water is a main source of food. But the next two shifts that I want to talk about tonight are usually within the same parcel. We'll have this fall, summer shift, and some of these mature bucks, they may go 5 miles. I was talking to a guy today. He was telling me his story, and he had a deer that he harvested, and a neighbor guy 5 miles away was like, "Hey, I seen this picture. I know this deer. This deer had traveled 5 miles during a shift." And we're going to talk about that shift here in just a minute during that rut. But I think of some of the shifts I'm going to talk about here now is the pre-rut shift. And a lot of guys don't even think about this. But the pre-rut shift, there's a lot going on right there. And then it's a shift. It's a shift within the parcel. They've already come a mile away or 2 miles away. I'm not talking about core bucks that stay and live in one general area. I'm talking about shifting deer that come from 1 mile, 2 miles, 5 miles, or even more. This shift for this pre-rut, a lot of it's going to take place around a lot of food, a lot of bedding areas, and the choice of where they lay down a lot of their sign. And we're going to talk about that a little bit here in a minute. But I think of these shifts, and I think of how they begin to find their own living quarters. They find their own areas where they're going to lay down sign, and they begin to shift. And I go back to the mature timber woods, that park type setting, big oaks, big hickories, no understory, less cover, less foliage, which creates no cover. And come early fall, these mature bucks, that's not where they want to bed. That's not where they want to live. They may lay sign out in those areas during the nighttime, but if you get tucked up close to that edge, whether it be a clear cut, whether it be a thicket of some sort, pine, cedar, that's where you're going to start seeing them shift into, because this understory is just not enough cover for them. Now, I think of that pre-rut shift and that rut shift. We'll talk a little bit about that here in just a little bit. But as we look at the drought and we look at the frost and how that generates a bedding shift, and a lot of times where they bed during pre-rut, sometimes they're not bedding there during the rut. It's the same parcel, it's the same deer doing the same things, but they begin to shift. And that drought and that frost will generate this bedding shift. And because there's no screen cover, there's no summer habitat anymore. A lot of the leaves are gone. There's no bedding cover. So they begin to shift around a little bit going into pre-rut. There was a deer several years back. I knew where he bedded. And the wind was perfect for me to put my scent in that area. You've heard me tell the story. I knew where he was laying down sign on my rub branch, my mock scrapes. And he had shifted just a little bit. And I know why he shifted from his summer, well, not summer, early fall, when he had first come in on the parcel. He used to bed up against this pond and this thicket and these willows. Well, those willows begin to drop all their foliage, and he shifted around probably about 500 yards in another direction and bedded inside these big treetops. Well, that was all created during the pre-rut for cover. So if these guys don't have any cover, and if cover begins to leave and leaves begin to fall off and understory begins to dry up and fall away, they begin to shift around in their bedding so they can have that complete cover. But I think tonight, this fall bedding shift will relocate a buck a lot of times. He won't move very far, but he'll move far enough to where he feels safe enough. I don't think it's going to, a lot of times, going to make him leave the parcel, but it's going to make him shift around into different bedding. But this fall bedding shift, it's going to relocate, especially in a setting like high stem count so they can have something to eat, briars and honeysuckle, clear cuts, because no longer are the leaves in the understory. No longer are the leaves in the tall green forage, whether it be ironweed or whether it be horseweed or whatever. A lot of that's died down now. So remember this, that poor quality timber parcel, hedge apple, cherry trees, hackberry, everything that comes with that is sawbriars and honeysuckle and ditch drainages, and that is exactly where they want to be. They're not going to be in that park setting. They're not going to be sitting out in the middle of the woods where it's wide open, and they begin to shift as that habitat begins to change. But poor quality timber is definitely whitetail parcel. That is where the deer like to be. That or just a big old nasty clear cut. I mean, that's where big mature deer really like to be. A couple more things I want to look at tonight before we get off here. Want to look at this pre-rut shift. I want to get back into that and dig into that just a little bit deeper. I know hunting some of the parcels that I hunt, some of them is pretty open and you can see because there's a lot of cropland and a lot of patch woods, a lot of finger woods. So I can kind of watch deer and see what they do throughout the morning. They may be 200 yards, 300 yards away, but I can still see them. And it's amazing to see how these bucks begin to shift around with their bedding. Of course, cameras will help you in that area too. But I want to look at that pre-rut October 15th to October 30th, Halloween or so. And sometimes there can be a shift during that time on your parcel. Yes, he may have showed up in September, or maybe he showed up October 1st, but now his signing phase, his home ground location, it's all starting to come together. He's laid out all this sign. He's got scrapes. He's got rubs. There's community scrapes he comes to, and keep in mind, during that pre-rut, there's a good chance that he's going to bed pretty close to that, because the first thing he wants to do, especially getting into that pre-rut and that peak pre-rut there at the end of October, he wants to make sure that no other buck is challenging his area. That's where these horizontal rub branches come in so good for me. I usually have several on a several 100-acre parcel, but usually one main buck will claim that horizontal rub branch and that vine or that rope and that dripper, and he keeps tabs on that one more than any. So what I want to say is, during this pre-rut, there can be a parcel shift. And October 15th to 30th, a lot of times it's going to shift really close towards where he's laying down his sign. He's protecting that area. And of course, there's probably going to be some doe bedding pretty close to that. But then we go into November 1st to about November 10th, and that rut shift usually occurs due to mature bucks cruising and checking, doe bedding. I don't know how many times I've watched from afar off it get up to about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, November, say 1st or 2nd or 3rd, and starting to warm up, and that buck just slip into a little sinkhole area, slip into a little ditch area and bed down. And it's a total shift from where he bedded maybe a week ago. But he's starting to hone in to that, checking doe bedding and cruising the edges of doe bedding, checking wind, maybe just running trails through doe bedding, and that creates a shift, because a lot of times where he ends up at 10 o'clock in the morning, 10:30 in the morning, because these does have him all messed up on his livelihood pattern that he's been on for 3 or 4 weeks. Sometimes he'll just shift and stay where he's at for that day, for that time, and he may never bed there again. So that rut shift will occur with mature bucks when they're cruising and checking bedding. So if you see, if you bust a big buck out of this notorious, or out of this bed, you've never seen one bed there before at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when you're going in to hunt. Well, there's a good reason that he probably just stopped right there that day and bedded right there for that day. I was hunting a parcel a few years ago, and I was going in the evening, plenty of time, 2 o'clock in the evening. It was 1st of November, maybe November 2nd, 3rd, or whatever. And I thought, man, I'm going to do an evening hunt this evening. And I usually never did hunt that area during the evening. And I come through an area where there's never, ever a deer bedded. And I busted up one of the biggest deer on the parcel right out of, and it was almost like an area where I'd have never dreamt he would have bedded there. But it was during that shift. Doe bedding was just up the hill. He was probably checking doe bedding that morning. And man, he decides, I'm going to bed right here for tonight. I feel safe, or for today. I feel safe. I feel confident. Well, what does Jason do? He runs right in there and busts him out of that bed. Never did see him bed there again. He probably wasn't going to bed there again anyhow, but it sure didn't help matters. So back to that shifting, that rut shifting, this can create a lot of random bedding. And sometimes it can be close to water. I mean, it's pre-rut, it's peak pre-rut. We're going into the rut. Maybe they found a couple of deer that they can check, a couple of does they can check and chase and maybe breed. And man, they're just running and running and running. They're not eating anything. They're not taking much time to browse. So sometimes that bedding can be close to water, whether it be a stream, pond, or a water hole that you've made. I know the deer that Caleb hunts, he just got that perfect setup on the water hole. It's in between buck and doe bedding, and it's just one of those deals where you see random deer come through there all the time to get a drink of water during that rut shift and during that November 1st through the 10th. But one last thing I want to mention tonight. I've been on here probably too long. It's like 27 minutes. But one thing I want to mention here tonight is the peak rut shift. And somebody, John Ferris, I think it was a while ago, said he hadn't seen his deer for so many days. He's gone, whatever. And I know a lot of people are in that boat. You know, you watched him all summer. You've watched him for the last month. And now he's gone. Maybe you're watching him right now. A week or 2 or 3 from now, he's gone. And here we are. It's season. He's nowhere to be found. Good chance he probably shifted a mile or 2 away. Maybe even further. Maybe closer. But good chance at least a mile. Well, that peak rut shift is what I want to just end this conversation with tonight. Peak means the pinnacle. You're all the way at the peak, and the other side is the downhill side. It's almost over. Right here in southern Indiana, a lot of times our peak rut is around November 15th. And then after the 15th, it drops off fast, very fast. And some people blame it on gun season. Some people blame it on pressure. Does have a lot to do with it, but peak rut is around the 15th here in southern Indiana. Anything after the 15th, it's falling off fast, as in chasing, anything like that. You start to see it dilapidate quick. Well, during that peak rut shift, some of these bucks that left you on September day or an October day, there's a good chance they're going to make full circle and come back sometime during the peak rut. They've went to that other parcel a mile or 2 away. They've bred a couple of does. Now they're going to see if they can get lucky enough and come back to their summer parcel and check that doe herd and get lucky enough. That is the peak rut shift. That's where you see that monster buck when you're driving down the road and he's running through somebody's yard. I mean, that's a lot of times when you see that. These deer, it takes, about a week for them to just get it done and breed one doe. If they get that done in 4 days, and sometimes they will, sometimes it's a lot quicker, but most of the majority of the time, it's 4 to 7 days before they get that done. And that's somewhere between Halloween and the end of November. And once they get to the point to where they can't find any does on that parcel, they're going to take that journey and go back to that summer parcel. They may only stay there a night. They may stay there the rest of the year. I've seen a lot of mature bucks, especially last year on some of the parcels that I had cameras on. I've seen so many mature bucks from December 1st all the way to January. I've seen a lot of them from about November 20th, 25th on too. And no telling where these deer come from. Some of them only stayed 2 or 3 days. Some only stayed a day. You only seen them one time. And while others, some stayed, the rest of the winter. But what they're doing is they're shifting back to where they summered and hoping to find that doe, or hoping to hook up that doe family group. And then you get into the second rut whenever some of them fawns start to come in, and then older mature deer, they'll hang around for that as well. So that late December, January, the last shift I want to look at tonight before we close is that winter shift. There is a winter shift when these deer, sometimes they begin to herd up, but a lot of times this winter shift will take place to where they find green food. That's why you see 40 deer out in a winter wheat field. And the reason they're in there is because they need the water content for number one. They need the water green digestive content because they've been eating woody browse, leftover acorns, whatever they can find during the day, during the night, or whenever. But they got to have that green content. That'll create a winter shift where a lot of these bucks, they may go a mile or two to find that green, lush, whatever it is. It could be honeysuckle. It could be winter wheat, winter rye. But during those December cold nights and days in January and December, that's when you'll see that shift take place. So anyhow, I hope this has helped somebody here tonight. I'll have to look back and maybe try to answer a few questions. Rich top buck and rut, very good right now in your mock scrapes and in your drippers, very, very good. Along with the mock scrape itself, very, very good. And it's a lot better than people realize. I just let it prove itself, but it's very good in drippers and in mock scrapes as well. And then of course, the one and only old number 11, the cat's meow. This right here, I really like to use it during the month of October. I like to spray it on my licking branches or my vines or my ropes, whatever I got going on there. I like to spray that up in the leaves or the foliage or the rope, or I like and on the ground as well. It's a very good cover scent. Keep all of our products off of your clothing, please. It can get dangerous. This stuff is the real deal. But anyhow, have any questions or anything, just shoot me a text. But Rich Top Buck and Rut, it's got the stuff in it right now. As testosterone is spiking, and these bucks are trying to figure out who they are in the herd and trying to figure out who they don't want in their herd, this is a definite challenge. I really like using this and misting it in the wind during the month of October, especially leading up towards Halloween with a grunt call. Spray that in his bed, and as long as he don't pick you up and he's only picking this up, it's a real deal. It will work. But anyhow, mock scrape, it's got the power along with old number 11. All right, guys, appreciate everybody. Take care. Have a very good night. And this is it for the shift, the shifting of your mature bucks. Wish everyone well. Season's just right around the corner, and maybe we'll get back on here next Tuesday with something else. Take care. God bless you all. Have a good night. Bam Eater Sun Lures, and we are out.